Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Business Growth Show, where we talk about all components of business and how to utilize them for exponential growth. My name is Athin Cassiotis. I'm a business growth expert who helps business owners grow and scale to create wealth and freedom. And today, I have an awesome guest. Her name is Suman Cherry, and she's the CEO of Cherry Talent Group, a talent matchmaker and a talent consultant. And she has 20 years of experience in recruiting and has successfully placed over 500 employees in industries such as medical, oil and gas, construction, and real estate. She's dedicated, understanding the needs of her clients and candidates, and takes pride in being a hiring matchmaker. And Cherry Talent Group redefines recruitment by treating each client as a trusted partner and working closely as an extension of their team. And they prioritize understanding a company's unique qualities and aim to nurture long-term relationships based on trust while finding candidates that align with their vision and culture. Welcome, Suman Cherry, and thank you for being on my show.
Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it.
You're welcome. I'm sure it's going to be an amazing show for everyone watching and listening today. So first, you are a very successful entrepreneur. So for those people who don't know who you are, please introduce yourself by telling us about you and your journey.
Yeah, for sure. So my name is Suman Cherry, and I am the CEO of Cherry Talent Group. I've been doing recruiting for over 20 years. I started off recruiting, I'm going to date myself a little bit, in the early 2000s, and I was doing recruiting with medical. So I started off working with doctors, and I did that for a few years. And then I transitioned back to Houston, and I started working in oil and gas, and I worked for an agency there as well, starting to do some oil and gas recruiting, those types of pieces. And then I broke off on my own, and I started my own firm, which was very, very, very successful. I started about 10 years ago, a little over 10 years ago. And I did that. I placed hundreds of candidates all over the United States, a lot of oil and gas, logistics, procurement, construction. And my business did not do so well. Things like the entrepreneur journey, we have failures and setbacks, and unfortunately I made some mistakes, which happens, and my business ended up not working out. So then I went into some different types of industries. I moved into construction, and I started doing more consulting-based recruiting. I kind of moved from this contingent-based recruiting, which is sort of the norm in recruiting, and I started a company that's really based on recruiting from a consulting standpoint. We do everything based on kind of more of an hourly piece, and it's more flexible for our clients. We started rolling it out a little less than a year ago, and it's been unbelievably successful. We've had so much success placing just incredible talent for our clients, and also saving them money and streamlining the process for them. So that's where I am.
Yeah, awesome. Great journey. And yes, there's always ups and downs. And I love hearing about that, right? It's not always rainbows and butterflies in business, and you've got to be able to, weather the storm or keep going, right, with that persistence. But love the pivot there. And, sounds like it's really working with what you're doing there, which is awesome. So love all of that. And, obviously, there's different ways of hiring people, right? And you alluded on it a bit there as well. There's different practices of how you do it. Do you want to talk about a little bit more deeper about the pros and cons around them?
For sure. So obviously, the most standard ways of recruiting are doing it more in-house. So you would have like an in-house team, an internal recruiter, maybe multiple internal recruiters, and they would source positions internally. And that's kind of how the recruiting would be done. Or if you're a smaller business and you don't have an internal recruiter, then you're doing all the recruiting. You're sourcing all the resumes. You're going out there looking for the candidates, and you're handling every part of it. The other most kind of more popular one, I would say, is the contingent model. And there's variations of it. There's a retainer contingent or a straight contingent, which is, in most cases, that you don't pay anything up front to engage a recruiter, and then they seek out a candidate. And once that candidate is placed, then you pay a percentage of the placement fee, which tends to be somewhere between 20 to 25% of the placement. And then there's some of it guaranteed on top of it. So, all part of it has like the pros and cons, right? So the cons, I would say, on the internal recruiting side, on the pros are obviously having a dedicated internal recruiter is, can be very cost effective. It also can be someone who really understands your culture, and ideally would be someone that could really move things around in the company to be able to, like, because a lot of times what happens with recruiting, it's like herding cats, right? It's something that's so important to a company, like your talent, but it's also something that is just pushed aside and kicked down the road, like, this, you need to deal with this, you need to deal with this. And that ends up being a hard thing in recruiting, because candidates are people, right? They're people. So it's not a transactional product. You are really ultimately matchmaking. So the negatives of the internal recruitment model is that they can work on 20 to 25, 30 positions at a time for multiple managers, and they don't really have the time to really dedicate and also look for candidates who maybe not fit all the pieces of the job description, but there's something like different about them, like an out of the box type of thing. And so a lot of times they're limited on what they can present to the managers, and things get kind of slowed down in that process. The process itself takes a long time and can be really repetitive. Obviously, if you're doing it yourself, same type of piece, you're doing yourself. I mean, if you're a business owner, you're a manager, you're taking away from your job to have to recruit. So you're having to source through hundreds and hundreds of resumes, post positions, make sure that you follow up with people, set up interviews. That whole process is very time consuming. When I talk to owners that we bring on who've never used recruiters, are like, oh my gosh, this is so much easier, because I can just do my job. Like, I'm not an expert on recruiting. I'm not an expert on having conversations or sourcing. There's an art to it. On the contingent side, the positives are absolutely, there are some incredible contingent recruiters who present very good talent. They are going to be out there sourcing and looking for good talent, going on the job sites and passive looking as well. There is some negatives, right? The cost associated with hiring a contingent recruiting firm can be very expensive. If you're hiring 4 people and their salaries are $100,000, you could be paying $100,000 in placement fees a year or more. And there's a lot of risk associated with that, because there is some type of guarantee, but the guarantee only lasts 6 months to a year. And if that candidate leaves, then you're starting from square, like from the start. The other kind of disadvantage is that they have to, since they are contingent, there is more of a hustle mentality. It is a little bit, they can be, I'm not going to say this is the case for all recruiters, but it can be more robotic based, where when they're calling candidates, they're not really building those relationships or that trust. They're really just, here's a set of questions, let's see that we answer them, and then check a checkbox. And then there can also be attachment to those candidates, because you only make money if the candidate gets placed. So if a red flag pops up, or if there's something going on, there might be hesitation to bring that up to a client. And that happens, and also they are working on a priority of 10, 20, 25 positions at a time, because they have to chase the money all the time. And that's really the case. So, and then our model is very different than that. So our model obviously has the component of the contingent model, where we're sourcing, we're going out to different sites, we're doing, passive searches, but there's a lot of more communications, because we do it by the hour. So there's a lot more of an investment of time. And there's also, clients are more active when you're working with them to communicate with candidates. So the feedback is quickly, like, interviews we do all of that. We handle the job description, we handle the negotiation. So the process itself, hiring itself, is an exhausting thing. It doesn't matter how easy it is, because you're dealing with 2 people, but it is something that we really have perfected in a way that we understand, like, that it's really important to understand to build those relationships with our candidates, and not just our clients, like to treat our candidates really well, to not ghost them, to not have like all this uncertainty, so they know, what they're walking into, because it may not always be the best match. Our goal is not to force someone into a company, or our clients our goal is to find someone that could be a good potential and create a marriage. Like, we have 2 people, like, let's date and let's court a little bit and see if there's a marriage here, right? And ours is also less expensive, so there is less risk on that end as well. So that kind of gives you a breakdown of that's a lot of information. I'm sorry.
It's all right. It was good. I think, for everyone that, whatever stage of business they're at, right, it gives you a really good foundation of understanding these different types, and then, what do you want to do? And you've obviously got a really cool model that's, more collaborative, and everything with the owners and the people in the business. So love that. And I know with hiring, it's not just about the skills, right? A lot of the time it's about the culture fit, right? And how are they connecting with those core values. So how do you, tie in, the company core values and the culture and everything into the hiring practices to make sure that, you're getting that fit?
Well, first of all, I mean, we really try to partner, right? Like, so when we meet with our clients initially, we're doing very deep dives in them. Like, we want to know who you are as an organization. Like, what are your core values? What drives you guys? And where's the pain, right? Because the thing is that it's so much more than just hiring someone. Because when you don't have the right people, or if you can't find the right person, the people on your team are getting discouraged, and the leaders of the team are getting discouraged. I mean, it's carrying over at home. So like, where is this coming from? Where's the motivation? What are the values? We try to really understand who this company is. What is their growth expansion place? And also what the culture is. Not just culture can be words, right? Like anyone could say I'm this or that, but like where are they really, living that space? And we ask a lot of questions about that as well. Like, what would your employees say about you? Like, what makes you guys, why does someone want to work for you guys? I mean, that is a really important question. I mean, a lot of times we can't always evaluate it, that first profile, but we build these long-term relationships. So as time goes on, it does unfold, right? Companies that are able to really communicate and create good value. And I've completely lost my train of thought of what the question actually was. But, and then on the candidate side, obviously the hard skills are important. We need to understand if they can do the job, right? But who are they as a person? Like, you're not just your resume, like what's going on in your life? Like, why are you really looking? Like, we really walk through, like, we ask a lot of questions from a value standpoint. Like, what do you like to do? What are your hobbies? What did you like to do as a kid? Like, we want to see what their work ethics are like. And really, we want to see responsibility. So if they say, oh, I left that company, my boss was a jerk. Okay, great. Like, well, what happened there? Because there's always some type of responsibility. And like, I know for a fact that in situations, something looks a certain way, and then, you step away and you're like, I have some responsibility here. And that's how the growth happens, right? So we're always looking for candidates that are growth oriented, that are very abundant mindset. They have this like resilience about them, that failure is okay, mistakes are okay, but we take accountability. So we do a lot of questioning on that piece. And then, that's kind of how it starts, the conversation. Then we build on top of that with our candidates and our clients as well. Like I said, we're really not trying to force something. We want it to be a natural thing. But we really try to create an accurate picture to our candidates so they know what they're kind of walking into as much as we can. And the same thing for our clients as well.
Yeah, awesome. Love that. So powerful. And I think it's a bit of a mindset shift that has to happen here as well, right? Because I know when I'm speaking to a lot of business owners, some of them are like, oh, I don't like working with recruiters because of X, Y, Z. And you know what I mean? They've had these experiences, a bit like sales, right? It's like sales. There's all these little stigmas about having, unfortunately, issues, right? Of working them with the past. So some of them might be like, I'm going to try and do it all myself, or, instead of going out. So do you want to talk a little bit about, some of those mindset shifts, and maybe, is there a way that it can be potentially beneficial in some instances internally, but then, compared to then getting someone that really knows what they're doing as well?
So I think the mindset shift, I mean, I think, when I started recruiting, it's just a very different space now, right? I mean, the technology has changed so much. There is a lot more recruiters. I mean, there were recruiters 20 years ago, but it was much more, you really needed them. Like, I mean, what we provided was like invaluable, because there was no LinkedIn. There was not really even Indeed. I think we used Monster and Career Builder. And it was just a lot of it was just grassroots lists we would just call off of and call into companies and those types of pieces. So I think that the necessity of the recruiter piece was really, really, really important. And I think that the fees are associated with that were absolutely understandable. But I don't think that's the case anymore. I think that there's a lot of more availability to find good candidates, and there's a lot of availability to reach out to them. So I don't think the fees necessarily reflect that. And I think that's the kind of the issue that clients have, is because the amount of effort a lot of times that's put in doesn't really match up with what the fees are. And the accountability from the recruiter on the other side, it's almost this feeling of like, a lot of recruiters are really good salespeople. I mean, we're good salespeople. It's just what it is. I mean, we've all done it. And we become attached to candidates, right? We become attached to candidates. Like, we just love these candidates. We talk to them all the time. We know everything about them. We know about their families, and we want so badly for it to be the right opportunity. And something might pop up and we don't say anything. And I don't think anyone's doing anything intentionally, but I think that's where the frustration comes from the client. I've heard multiple companies say, like, hey, I hired this person and he interviewed this way and his resume looked like this. And then he came to work and it wasn't real. It wasn't true. And so there's, they're going to change resumes and they're going to fix them up to make them. And I'm not saying anything negative about it. It's just, there is a lack of a transparency piece with it. And I've been in the industry a long time and I've done those things. So I can fully, say, and that's why I started a different kind of business, because for me, it didn't align to my values anymore, and on the flip side, do I think that you should ever do it in-house? No, I don't. I think that recruiting is its own monster, its own animal. I think there's a lot of tiny components that companies don't realize that, when we are working with candidates, like, they're calling us up like at 6:30 in the morning on the way to the interview, like, I'm turned around, I don't know where I'm going, and we're Google mapping. We're like, okay, where are you? Give me your location. I mean, we're making sure they're getting there, and they're not going to be that, right? And candidates are nervous, like, they get scared, they need some prep, they need some encouragement, that type of piece. So I absolutely think that if you have the financial ability to bring it out, to outsource it to a recruiting agency or that space, yes, I think recruiters know how all the job search works, how the Boolean works. I think there's a lot of pieces that are to it. I mean, and we're screening through hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of resumes, like, every single day. That's what we do. We're sourcing, we're looking at resumes, we're having conversations, we're saying yes, we're saying no, we're having second conversations. I mean, there's a lot of pieces to it. So no, I think you should definitely not do it in-house. I think it's a lot of work.
Yeah, no, awesome. I love that, right? And so true with I love that mindset shifts and everything like that. And I think, the other part about is how we attract people, right? Like, because they might be going for multiple roles, and this comes down to, like, the employee value proposition. Like, why should they pick, your company compared to somebody else? How do you make it attractive? Like, for top talent to actually want to work in a competitive market, right? Where, there's less people around, so they've got a bit more of the pick of the litter, so to speak, in terms of businesses. So how do we, as a business, do some things that we can, really attract top talent?
I think the first place is to humanize the whole experience of recruiting. Like, it's a consistency piece, right? I hear it from candidates all the time, like, you guys are so different. Like, you actually had a conversation, like you didn't ghost me. I mean, like I can't believe, like, I'll let a candidate know today, I'm sorry, didn't work out, they're not interested in moving forward, blah, 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 and he was like, thank you. Because I've had 10 other recruiters that didn't tell me anything. So the bar is pretty low, to be honest with you. You know what I mean? Like, I'm not saying this is the case for all, right? But when you're working with so many positions at a time, what most recruiters are, you are going to have a lot of responsibilities, right? And I think what makes us unique is the fact that our approach is very real. There's no, you know what it is, right? Like, we're communicating with you all the time. We're giving you feedback on the market. If you need to put the position on hold, that's fine. Like, if you find an internal candidate, which happens, right? We just are going to charge you for the hours that we build and we worked on the position. And it gives you opportunity. Like, we really see things as, like, we put a net out and we want to bring out some good fish, right? And we might present you 2 or 3 really solid people that we've gone through hundreds of resumes for. And, we also have no problem with feedback. Like, if you don't like our candidate, okay, we want to know why. Tell us why. We want to understand all the pieces of it. On the candidate side, we don't ghost. We are following up with people. We're taking the time to really have a conversation with them. We approach everything from a place of I live my values from this place. I really live from a place of like believing that it's better to treat people like with kindness and how would I want to be treated. And it's so simple, like what I teach my daughter, but we carry that as well into our business as well. And I think it's different, you know?
I love all of that, what you just said there. And I think the other part, what I want to know about is about the candidate, right? So let's take money out of it here, like they're getting paid what they're worth and they're happy with that side of it. Like, what else are they expecting? Because we've got this, for example, flexibility, right? Some people, are going, you have to work in the office, type of thing like that, and they want it for the culture of the business. Some of them have a bit more flexibility with, working from home and things like that. So what are the candidates wanting? Are you seeing in the market right now, apart from the money side of things that, makes it more appealing that they might pick that business over another one if they have a couple of, opportunities?
So I think there is I mean, I don't know if it's always been this, but I've noticed this since COVID, that there's definitely been a shift with candidates, like with talent. They had a lot of opportunity to spend time with the family. They had a lot more flexibility in their day to day. And I think that's a really important piece for people in an organization. The leader piece is really important. They want to work for people that they feel inspired by. They want leaders that are going to be the support for them, that are going to be the example. That's a very important piece. They want to be part of something that there's growth and they can see that growth. And that, like anything else, I think it's like what everyone wants in any relationship. They want to be seen and heard and felt. They want to feel like they contribute. And I don't know, I think if you're an organization and it has to be a situation where most of the time you're in the office, I think if you still create a really healthy environment where there is flexibility, people have to go and watch their daughter play soccer, or these little nuances of life I think, and the company is cool about that because they understand that we're human and we have lives, and it's not just about work. And I think that's what really people want. People want to feel like they're not just a number or a commodity. They want to feel like they're valued. And I think that's more important even than the money piece. But the money piece correlates to it, because I know for a fact, if you are someone who's working in an organization, you feel valued and you feel like your leaders care and you feel like you are motivated, you are like engaged, and you will make more money on a natural basis because of that engagement. Your company gives you resources to learn beyond the role, and I just think that piece is so important for candidates.
Yeah, awesome. Love that. Really powerful. And let's talk about the cost and time impact for retention, right, in the hiring process now, because I think, it's number one is not just getting them in, it's right. It's then the retention and how you're, moving forward from there. So do you want to, elaborate a little bit more on those points too?
Yeah, I mean, it's really important that companies also have a retention plan in place for keeping their, current employees. I mean, bringing them on is one piece, but how do you keep people engaged, right? You keep people engaged by having transparency, authenticity, vulnerability within the organization, where you are letting people make mistakes. Honestly, like people make mistakes and people learn, and you're holding accountability. Your leaders are holding accountability. They're accountable, right? And so you're accountable. And there's a lot of responsibility. I mean, it's really as simple as that, right? I think if you create an organization, and I think also as an organization, you have to know who your toxic people are. And a lot of times your toxic people are your highest achievers, which is a really challenging place, because here you've got a top salesperson who's making so much revenue for your organization, but on the other end of it, they're creating so much havoc from this ego perspective that you have to make those difficult decisions where you have to let those people go, because those people are hurting your green people, your youngsters, your people coming in, they're trying to learn everything, and you're really hurting your organization when you have that. And you also need to, obviously, it's easy to get rid of low producers, but how do you get rid of those people? And I think those people really create the most havoc for a company. And especially if that's in your leadership team, and that's a major issue, because that's all going to fall within the organization. So companies need to be really, really aware of, it's not just about, we have all these cultures with, no, are we living these? Is there a vision? What's the vision? Do people know what the vision is? Are people engaged in the vision? People want to be a part of something that's bigger than just, it could be any kind of company anyway. People want to be part of something where they're needed and appreciated and valued. And that's how you keep people. It really is.
Yeah, awesome. Love that. Completely agree with all that area there. And you mentioned before a bit about technology has changed, right? It's transforming the recruitment space, and the hiring process and everything like that. So let's delve a little bit more into how that's working, and I guess the pros and cons of using it, right? Maybe it's a combination or whatever with the human element too.
So I think, I get this question asked a lot for me, and here's the thing, like, it's great. I think all the AI and all the ability to be able to reach a larger audience, reach more candidates, reach more clients, the ability to find better talent, the Indeed, ZipRecruiter, LinkedIn, all the millions of sites out there, they are really great sites. They are really, really awesome at really, a lot of times, finding some really good people. But the flip side of that is it's relying on that so much, right? Like, that is still not a human to one-on-one connection. And that's the thing. Like, I heard somewhere that a company was automated their, in an AI way, like their interviews, there's initial interviews. And so it's still, as human as it can be, it's still not a human. You know what I mean? It's still not one person speaking to another person. It's a completely different kind of connection with someone. So I think technology is amazing. I think it supports things, but I think there's always will be a need in hiring to have that human connection with two people having a conversation,
Yeah, definitely. Makes sense, right? We're hiring people, so we want to get people involved in the process and just technology to support it at the same time. And I guess when we're going through this assessment and selection process, right, there's obviously some steps in there, like you do multiple interviews, or maybe there's some sort of area that they can prove their expertise or things like that. Do you want to talk a little bit more about, what's ideal or what you're seeing, so that we can get a good picture, right, of this person? It's not just first interview, let's hire type of thing like that, so we get, the right person.
Yeah, I mean, I think it depends on the client. It depends on how technical the position is. Obviously, if it's a very technical position, there's going to be some standardized math tests. They're usually fifth or fourth grade math that make sure that a basic understanding of math. There's also some clients like to do personality tests. So there is some personality tests and those pieces to kind of see how people fit into the organization based on there's a million of them. And then, but most of my clients, we don't do a lot of testing. Like, I have a pretty deep dive interview. My assistant usually does as well. We might speak to this candidate for a few hours before we even submit the candidate. We also really go through the resume in great detail. In most cases, a client, when I have the profile with them, I'm pretty direct in the sense that we have to treat hiring when we find a great candidate a sense of urgency. So I don't do the 5 interview thing. I mean, it's just unbelievably, I mean, there's no way you can interview someone 6 times and they still not be the right match. That is just the case, right? Like, but I think a lot of times what I tell my clients is, feel into it, right? Like, when you're with them, like, if they say, I don't know, I'm just not sure about this candidate. Okay, like, what is it about this candidate? Or the candidate side the same way, like, what is it about it? And it's almost a situation where you either have to tighten it up even more, like this unicorn plays, because sometimes clients want this unicorn. They want this perfect candidate, but humans aren't perfect. There's going to be some imperfection. So I think it's a situation where for candidates, I would say if you're looking for a new position, the best time to ever look for a job is when you are not looking for a job, right? So you should always have your LinkedIn profile updated. You should also always be updating your information, because it's very attractive, right? Like, there's always going to be new opportunities, and maybe it may not be a situation where you don't like what you're doing, but maybe a growth opportunity comes along and it's something that you wouldn't even think that you wanted to do. And you're like, oh my gosh, that's the next level for me, And if you're actually in the job, actually looking for a job, it's about persistence. And it's awful. It's a mess out there. I know it's ghosting. It's double applications. It's filling out 3 applications. It's 8 interviews. It is not pretty at all. And I know that. So it's just going to be about persistence and leveraging your own network. I mean, you have to leverage your own network. And that's the other piece. Like, even if you're not looking for a job, you should always, always be on LinkedIn and posting interesting things about your industry and connecting with industry leaders. Like, that's how we create what we want, right? Like, we are proactive in putting energy into those places. So it is a frustrating thing, you know. There's not a right or wrong way to do it. It's just about, you just have to do it. You just have to keep going out there. I mean, you maybe need to get a resume writer, update that resume. Your resume is very, very important. You need to spend the time to work on that resume. It needs to show not just your skills listed, but what did you do for these organizations? How did you grow these organizations? How did you help these organizations? How did you put processes in the organizations? Whatever it is, put it up there. Your wins, your accomplishments, because ultimately that's what companies are looking for. Like, they have a problem. They've got this position. I need someone to fix this. I need someone to help me with this. Oh, this person has some of this experience. I need some of this, right? And they may not even know they need that. So I think it's really important as a candidate to just network and to practice interviewing. I mean, it's as simple as that. I mean, practicing interviewing, right? I mean, you and I talk on a regular basis, right? Because we're both in this, and I do too. But if you're not someone who's used to this, going in an interview is very intimidating. So practicing is really important as well.
Yeah, love that. So many awesome points there. And what are your thoughts? Because some businesses, they like, they do a bit of an internal thing, right? Where like someone that works there might be like, hey, my cousin or my friend, would be really good to work for this role. And obviously, maybe they get put forward, as part of a group that, maybe with yourself, with your own candidates. So what do you feel around this element about, getting people that are introduced and what we should think about as a business owner, right? Because maybe there's they're already connected there, and there's a bit of a guard down or something. So what are your thoughts around that?
I mean, I try to take anything personal, right? This is business, right? So if I submit a couple of candidates and the owner's cousin, cousin's brother popped in and they want to move forward on him, I mean, I'm going to obviously give my opinion, they ask for it. But at the same time, everyone has to kind of go through their journey. And a lot of times it doesn't work out. I'm not saying it always doesn't, but a lot of times it doesn't because it just doesn't. But you have to let people do what they're going to do. I mean, I'm not here to force a candidate down some, I want a company to find the right match for them. And if they feel like that's the right match for them, then they're great. I don't have any attachment to it, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah, cool. Awesome. Just want to hear it because that's what I see a bit with how people do things. And I guess let's talk a bit about a mistake here, right? From the business owner perspective, you're working in this business and you're sort of working together, I guess, in this point. But what do you see as maybe a big mistake or something that you're seeing in the market that they do that can hamper the process, right? In getting that right person.
Yeah, I think it's just the pace of it, right? The pace of contacting the candidate, getting him in for an interview, scheduling the interview, offer letter, follow up, all those pieces, they take way too long, I mean, it takes a long time. You maybe you submit a resume and then a week and a half later, 2 weeks later, you get a call. Well, this candidate's probably taking a job if he's a highly sought after or she's a highly sought after candidate, So there's the delay in that. And then also the delay in scheduling the interviews and coordinating it. And when you have multiple people need to be coordinated, I get it. Everyone's got a million things on their plates, but it's a priority piece, right? But if you make this a priority and you understand that process, that it can be a lot less painful if we just move through the process quicker. That's the biggest mistake I see with companies is the process, how long it takes, and this need to interview 5 or 6 times. I mean, it's just unbelievably amount. That just takes too much time. It's just, and it takes 3 or 4 months. And then the flip side of it is, if you have a position that's open and you're not filling that position, that someone in your organization or a couple people in your organization are happy to fill in, those people are going to get burned out. Those people, so that hurts your retention on the other side, creates a negative morale. from the other side of it. So there's a lot of factors that go into it as well.
Yeah, I love that. And it's also, you could miss out on the talent as well, right? Because if they take too long, then they could find a job somewhere else. And
Yeah.
you know,
I mean, it's all the time. And candidates get a bad taste in their mouth. They get a bad taste about if it's a recruiter, that they might get a bad taste in the recruiter and the company, which is associated. Because you have to also understand, as an organization, when you're working with a recruiter, they're representing you. They're representing your brand. And that's a really important piece. That's your brand, that's your reputation. So if you have recruiters ghosting people, not following up, not being consistent, kind of dropping the ball, which I'm not saying happens all the time, but has been known to happen, that also isn't going to reflect just on the recruiter. It's also going to reflect on you as an organization as well.
Yeah, love that. So true. Really, really powerful stuff there. And been so much gold that you've been sharing with us today. And as we're wrapping up, what one key piece of advice would you like to give to all the entrepreneurs watching and listening today?
I mean, I think the key is, whatever you put energy into grows, right? And you have to be able to, as an entrepreneur, do it before you're ready, because you just won't ever do it. You'll just stay stuck waiting for this perfect moment to make a decision. It doesn't have to be some major action decision, but in order to create momentum and motivation, it has to be through action, aligned action. And that a lot of times feels very scary because it's new, it's uncomfortable, it's risk, but that is the only way forward.
Yeah, awesome. I love that. Completely agree with all of that. Take the action, take the leap, and then, keep moving forward from there. And we connected through our network. So I learned about your awesome journey from, being a recruiter to now being the CEO of Cherry Talent Group. Amazing woman, so much knowledge. And I'm sure we continue to find candidates that align with the company's vision and culture. I'm very grateful that we connected, and I look forward to working with you. So, Suman, how can people find you and get in contact with you?
So I'm on LinkedIn, Suman Cherry, Cherry Talent Group's on LinkedIn. Also my website, cherrytalentgroup.com. And on my website, there's a submission form. I'm also offering a 30-minute expert consultation if you just refer to the podcast. And that is for candidates or clients. And that could even just be if you're a potential job seeker and you just want some advice. Like, I don't even know what to do with my resume. I don't even know where to go. I don't even know how to start. Great, let's talk about it. And if you're a client and even if you don't necessarily want to bring on a recruiting agency, but you want to understand how to streamline your process, or you have questions about it, let's talk as well.
Yeah, awesome, guys. Definitely check out Suman in all of those different areas there, because she definitely knows her stuff, as you can tell from today, on whether it's the client or the candidate side there too. And thank you to everyone for watching and listening to this show where we talk about everything on business growth. And please like, subscribe, and leave us a 5-star review. And you can find me on LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube as Athin Cassiotis, or visit my website, athincassiotis.com. And if you want to grow and scale your business, you can reach out to me on any platform to see if we're a good fit. I completely agree with you, or do I? The only way we know is if you tune in next time. So until next time, remember that our business grows when we learn skills and take action using them in spite of fear. So remember to design your growth and results.